It is an important and popular fact that things are not always what they seem.
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is my January wrap-up, slightly different from before because really I'm just mainly going to talk about the books I've read. So in the past, I have talked about what I've done on the channel as well. So I'm not going to do that so much today. And the main reason for that is I've got a very short window and I haven't got a lot of battery on my iPad. We'll see how we get on. So this is what I've read. I've got a couple of other things to talk about at the end as well. So the first thing I read in January, first thing I read in 2025 was Batman Year One graphic novel. So I'm doing a little bit of a delve into the Batman graphic novels. So a little while ago, I read, oh my God, I forgot what it's called. The Long Halloween. And I've read this one now. Next month I'll read Hush. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was well, I didn't like it as much as The Long Halloween, but I really did enjoy it. And I love the artwork. It was written by Frank Miller, but drawn by somebody else. And I preferred the artwork to what Frank Miller would have done. Because I'm not a massive fan of his art style. But yeah, it was really good. So it's like the beginning of Batman's career. And then I read, or finished, The Invisible Man. I've got it there because I can't see where I've put it. And usually I keep my books aside until I do my wrap-up. There we are. And I buddy read this with Kim for middle of the book march. I did a review of it on the channel. I loved it. I thought it was really, really interesting. And one of the most fascinating books I've read in a while, and a very important book. So if you are curious, please look on the channel for the review of it, and definitely recommend you read it. I thought it was really, really good and beautifully written, but really interesting as well. Quite different and quite surprising in places. So yeah, The Invisible Man, Ralph Ellison. I read that one next with Kim from middle of the book march. The experience of buddy reading it with Kim was fantastic as well. So I'd recommend buddy reading anything with Kim, and hopefully we'll be doing something else later on in the year. Then I read a book that I bought because I'd heard about it on BookTube somewhere and I couldn't remember where. Kanai Minato's Confessions. And I really, really, really enjoyed this. I read it very quickly. I raced through it. It's not massive, but it was so gripping. And it's actually the most successful experience I've had with second person narrative. So there's loads and loads of characters that are interweaving in the story as well. It's basically 6 chapters and 6 points of view about the same thing that happens to this school, and in particular this teacher who is enacting revenge on the people she thinks killed her daughter. And it was so impressive. I really loved it. And it's quite challenging. It's quite hard to read in places. It's really good. It's really shocking, but really interesting, and it's brilliantly written. Loved it. Confessions, Kanai Minato. Absolutely brilliant. And then I was on a roll. This month has been so good for reading. Then I read Ice by Anna Kavan. And again, I did a review of this on the channel, and really impressive, really different, quite oppressive in its narrative voice. There was this sort of tension throughout the whole thing, and a really kind of an awkwardness, if you like, or an uncomfortable tone to it, and really interesting plot. I had a very humble interpretation that I haven't seen anywhere else in my review. I think, knowing some information about Anna Kavan's life, I interpreted the book differently to what I'd heard about before. So I don't know what you think about my interpretation, but definitely recommend you read it. But it's I'd say it's quite hard going. It's a very serious book. But Ice, Anna Kavan, very, very good. Then I read another challenging book for completely different reasons, and another one I really liked. Now, Sayaka Murata's Earthlings. This is the second book I've read by Murata, and I absolutely loved it. There is a video coming up on my channel soon where I talk about the book, and I kind of bounce off the book to talk about trigger warnings as well, because I genuinely think if I knew what was in the book, I wouldn't have enjoyed it as much. So the surprise and the shock of what was in there was half of the enjoyment. But it was such a one-off. I've never read anything like it, and I really liked it. It's not for everyone, but I loved it. I thought it was really, really good. So yeah, I'm a big fan of hers now. I'll get to another one in a second. So yeah, Earthlings, awesome. I don't know if you remember, but I had already read Convenience Store Woman. So I wanted to read Earthlings because I like that so much, but they're quite different, even though similar themes, but quite different. And then, as a nod to Alice, I carried on the Winter of Wyndham, and for this month, I read Stowaway to Mars. And to be fair, I wasn't expecting that much because nobody ever talks about it. It's one of the lesser known John Wyndham books, but I thought it was really good. Really good. It kept surprising me. The narrative kept moving, even though you'd think, oh, maybe it's going to come to a stop and it's just going to resolve where we weren't. But it kept adding stuff. And the characterizations were really interesting. It was kind of unpredictable in a really fun way. So, yeah, I think this is a really strong John Wyndham book. So if you ever see it around, I think it's worth reading. I was really impressed. So John Wyndham hasn't let me down yet, actually. I'm not massively fussed about his short stories, but all of the novels I've read by him I've really enjoyed. So John Wyndham, Stowaway to Mars, awesome stuff. Really, really good. And then I started reading Live Ceremony by Saka Murata. So this is a series of short stories. So I've only read a few of them, but they're brilliant. So it just seems like everything I'm reading by her I really like. They're quite mad, but not in a crazy Lewis Carroll kind of way, but in a more graphic and surprising and shocking way. But absolutely amazing. Yeah, fantastic. Really, really like her. So that was a nice little treat I gave myself when we went to London, and bought that and started that. So I've read a few of those stories. So the next novel I read was Shills Can't Cash Chips, one of the hard case crime books by Eric Stanley Gardner. He's the man who created Perry Mason. And I really enjoyed this. I thought it was really, really good. Again, raced through it, couldn't put it down, thrill ride throughout, and just a great book. I kind of find these books a really fun, reliable comfort read, these hard case crime books. So I've got a load of them. I've got about 25, I think it is. And yeah, this was a really nice plot. I didn't know where it was going to go next, and just brilliant. Shields Can't Cash Chips. Really, really enjoyed it. And then I read my first Raymond Carver story, and I actually read the title story from this book, What We Talk About When We Talk About Love. It's quite a short story, quite like as a short story, shorter than I expected it to be, and I really enjoyed it. It makes me intrigued to read more. It wasn't the best short story I've read, but it's basically like two couples exploring love and kind of almost bickering about it, and with the way the conversation goes, it flows really nicely. It's very realistic and really interesting. So he's painting characters really well there. So I was impressed with that. So I'm going to carry on reading Raymond Carver's stuff. And the last thing I read was Theodore Sturgeon's More Than Human, which is a reread. And I hadn't read it for decades. And it's an interesting book. It is dated in its language, but I think once you deal with that and know when it was, think about when it was written, it's quite a progressive novel in some of the things that it does with the plot for these characters, and it's a fix-up novel. So the second story was what he wrote first, and then he wrote the first and third parts around it. Like the bit was the first bit, and then he built around it. It's kind of interesting. I prefer his short stories to More Than Human, but I enjoyed it, and it's definitely an interesting book that explores another generational shift in evolution through some children that have special needs, basically. And yeah, it's kind of interesting. So More Than Human, Theodore Sturgeon, was the last full thing I read. So just kind of to cap that off, Before I talk about the bi-monthly book club, I need to talk about that. Just show you a couple of things. One that I've bought and one that a book I've bought and a book that I've got out of the library. So I bought something from my Ray Bradbury collection. Bradbury Speaks, and I can't wait to get stuck into this. It's really nice condition. It was only like £4 or something, and it's his essays and speeches and stuff. So really, really love that. Ray Bradbury. Too soon from the cave, too far from the stars. So yeah, if you know this book, let me know, but I can't wait to read that. So that's really cool for my very large Ray Bradbury collection. And something I mentioned on the live stream recently, I bought I got out of the library a book about the history of the biscuit. Oh yeah. So if you know me and you know my channel, you know biscuits are a big part of my life, and cookies if you're American. And this is the history of a very British indulgence, the biscuit. So yeah, I can't wait to get stuck into that. I'm kind of using that as a bit of a storathon book. So one last thing I wanted to say quick, and that is that I was stressing out about the bi-monthly Belief and Behaviour book club that I've started. So I have delved very gently into The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat. I'm going to be finishing it this month to do a live stream about it in March, and that's the first book on the in the book club. And there's 5 other books, and I'm just going to put them up here. These are the other 5 books, or at least these are 4 books, because I want to mention this last one because I'm changing it. So originally it was this one. I'm changing this one because the more I think about it, the more I'm thinking, I know what I'm like. I'm not going to read this because of forcing myself to read it. I think I need to go in and out of this and read this over a long period of time, or read it when I'm in the mood for it and not when I'm forcing myself to do it. So I'm taking this one out of the book club and I'm replacing it with this one. So this is up in the loft, so which is why I'm not showing it to you, but I'm going to read this one in that space. Okay. So yeah, keep an eye on the channel if you do want to get involved in this and you want to read those ones that I've just been putting up for the book club. The idea is that it's a bi-monthly book club, so we have 2 months to read these books or something similar, and then I'll do like a discussion live stream afterwards. So I am a little bit less stressed about it, knowing I've taken this one out. So it was a decision that I realised I felt a little bit overwhelmed by what I just started, so I feel a lot less like that now. So yeah, you can see some of them up there, some of the ones in the book club. So yeah, we'll see how we get on. One last thing, just a quick mention about Jim from Mystery Mayhem made me a new logo. You've seen it probably, and I've used it on other social media sites as well, so on my Instagram and on my Facebook, and just really appreciate it. I thought it was awesome. So big shout out to Jim, brilliant artist. I'm kind of thinking about making a t-shirt out of it, but regardless of that, I'm so pleased to have a new logo that's kind of more relevant than the first one, and just think it looks awesome. So yeah, thank you, Jim, and thank you so much, guys, for watching. Stay curious, everybody.
Picture of what it's like to be